Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being on with us today. We're really excited to jump into the new year. My name is Amanda Leach. I'm the Assistant Director for Career and Networking Programs here in the JMU Office of Alumni Relations. I'm a proud 2009 and 2015 grad of JMU. Today's webinar is brought to you by the JMU Alumni Association. We have alumni signed up from 27 different states and internationally from Dubai and Ozurgeti. Pretty cool. I want to say thank you for participating. Your feedback means a lot to us, especially with this relatively new program. You will receive a follow-up survey after the webinar. Please take the time to give us some feedback so we can continue to improve upon what we're doing. Before I introduce today's speaker, I just want to go over a couple of brief housekeeping notes. If you are participating live, please know that your microphones are muted. That is for the sake of the presenter. We do have two chat options. There's a Q&A and a chat. If you'd like to ask a question of the presenter, please use the Q&A section. If you'd like to speak with other participants or myself, you can feel free to use the chat function. Please feel free to tweet during the webinar. We're using the hashtag JMUAAwebinar. I'll go ahead and put that in the chat box. And the webinar will be recorded and can be accessed online within a few days. Usually it's within 24 hours, but we like to give ourselves a little bit of a window. Now it is my pleasure to introduce Zach Detweiler, who is a 2008 grad from the WRTC program at JMU. He is currently the Enterprise Relationship Manager at LinkedIn. I'll let him explain what that title means. Before joining LinkedIn about 3 years ago, Zach worked for a leading global recruitment firm, where he worked on recruitment, augmentation, and outsourcing solutions for regional and national companies. At LinkedIn, Zach works consulting and advising major national and international companies on talent acquisition and employer branding. Ultimately, he helps transform talent brands and modernize a company's ability to hire the best and brightest at scale. Zach, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you so much, Amanda, for the introduction. I'm excited to be here and hopefully give back a little bit to my JMU alumni. So just as Amanda, kind of alluded to my background, I'll give you a little bit more detail around that. So who am I, right? I graduated in 2008 with a degree in technical and scientific communications. The last 6 years, I've been in the talent acquisition industry, if you will, or field. I started out working at a recruiting firm, both recruiting and then eventually selling and implementing recruiting augmentation services. I eventually left the staffing and recruiting agency world and joined LinkedIn. It was actually LinkedIn emailed me one day on LinkedIn and said, hey, Zach, we're going to be building out a specialty division inside of LinkedIn to consult and help sell to staffing firms. So actually the first few years of my career at LinkedIn, that's exactly what I did. I worked daily pretty much with recruitment firms, which are, when a company has problems hiring or they have a huge hiring need or just for whatever reason need to basically outsource that, they would, use a staffing firm, right? So I would consult with those firms to basically help them leverage LinkedIn to the fullest. And right now I've actually exited that group and I now work in a segment called High Touch, which is basically key accounts within LinkedIn, where I help large enterprise clients develop recruitment strategies and talent brand strategies. So all that said basically gives me kind of an insider's perspective on how major companies think about talent, the recruitment strategies they take, and just gives me, I guess, a good scope of that. So what I'm hoping to do today is help my alumni out from a candidate perspective to give them a little bit of an idea of how they can leverage LinkedIn, both if they're a professional that's just trying to advance in their own companies or get better at their jobs, but also if somebody's looking for greener pastures or even becoming an active candidate. So that's a little bit about me. For today's session, what I wanted to go over, and this is the first, there's going to be a second session as well, which I'm sure Amanda will talk to towards the end of this. This is really about, first an introduction to what LinkedIn is. We're going to look at optimizing and leveraging your professional brand. and then some strategies around, hey, if you're hunting on the job, or even, maybe starting to look in a very passive way, some best practices around that. So first we're going to kind of tackle what is LinkedIn. And so, I'll try to get some engagement here off the bat, and please use the chat function. Some people throw out something. What do you guys think LinkedIn is? So I'm getting some things, okay, a job board, it's a social network, place to look at news. Okay, yeah, sure, it's a lot of things, right? A recruitment website, networking, I'm getting a bunch of others, absolutely, right? So LinkedIn is actually a lot of those things. The one thing it necessarily is not, and that I want to make sure is, people think about it in a little bit different way, is it's not a job board in the traditional sense. It's not really necessarily a recruitment website, although it's used for that. It really is a social platform for the professional side of you, right? We think about Facebook, right? There's not, MySpace is long gone, Facebook is the monopoly in the space. LinkedIn is really the other side, right? We have a professional side and a personal side to our lives, and LinkedIn is that professional side. The key thing to realize here is what makes LinkedIn not a job board. If you think about a job board in a traditional sense, right, a Monster.com, Career Builder, those sort of sites, those are all the only people, I guess, that are going to those sites are usually active candidates, right? Because they're not networking with people, right? They're not really consuming news. They're pretty much only looking for a job. That's really what separates LinkedIn from those other resources, and it's why companies invest in LinkedIn, and really it's becoming a core pillar to every company's strategy. And part of that, it kind of revolves around how corporations and recruitment departments really think about talent. And there's absolutely a differentiation and a premium placed on passive talent versus active talent. Not to say that, hey, everybody, was out of a job at some point, I'm sure, right? So nothing to say anything against active talent, but do realize if you're presently employed, you're so much more attractive to an employer than if you're actively looking and unemployed. So anyway, the reason why those companies like LinkedIn is because people come to LinkedIn for all other reasons besides actively looking for a job. It's actually 70% of all LinkedIn's members are not even interested in a job. They're there to network. They're there to kind of enrich their professional lives. So now that we kind of understand what LinkedIn is, I'll give you a little bit more insight into kind of our global plans and kind of what's in store with LinkedIn, what we're doing. It's really our next like 5 or 10 year plan. So, overall, our mission is really just to connect the world's professionals and make them more productive and successful, right? So that, that's right, a core pillar. And to really have that take off, we want to make sure that we connect all the world's professionals, right? And so there's this kind of idea that LinkedIn has called the economic graph. And basically what that is, it's the mission basically is that, and we're actually a good way there now, is basically to map up every part of the global economy. And so we start with members, right? You guys we have 400 million members that are actively part of LinkedIn's network. So we want to make sure that every worker, right, is documented on LinkedIn. They're represented in this global graph, this map, if you will. We have 3.5 million active company profiles, so just about, every Fortune 5,000, most companies are on LinkedIn, right? We have 2 million jobs actually now. Something that a lot of people might not know is similar to Indeed. We actually go out and we scrape every job on every company's external website. So if you go to LinkedIn, you can pretty much have the same idea that you're going to be basically searching through every company's external job portal as well. Similar to Indeed is the same kind of model. We actually had, a couple years ago, we had something like 200,000, and within about 24 months, we're now up to 2 million. We actually have 24,000 schools on LinkedIn as well, and that's something that we're going to be kind of aiming towards too, not just to help people enrich themselves in their own careers and maybe find their next opportunity, but really figure out, okay, if I want this job and I'm a freshman in or a senior in high school rather, what I can see and map out through LinkedIn, these people that kind of I aspire to be them in those positions, where did they go to school, how did they get there? We're actually going to be able to show people, wow, for these people that have these jobs, this is where they went to school, and it's all seamlessly being able to look at. We have 1 billion network updates happening as well. And that's on I think it's on a monthly basis, actually. And when we think about that, again, one of the pillars of LinkedIn is we're not just here to find a job. You're here to network. We're actually the largest and most trafficked professional publishing platform there is. You know, Facebook has, hey, everybody's putting something out on there in terms of their personal opinions on things. LinkedIn's actually the biggest source that grabs everything on the internet, right, where people are, you know, basically publishing. So that, again, it all comes back to this, you know, idea of an economic graph where we want to map every member, every company, every job, and also skills, and then schools, and then what people are talking about, right? And as we map this out, we're going to be able to predict, using that data, okay, wow, we can see these jobs are becoming a need, but, oh, these schools, there's not enough schools that teach those skills, and it's going to allow us to basically fill in gaps in the global economy, right? So it's called the economic graph. So that's a little bit where LinkedIn's going, and you know, I think companies and you know, professionals are really on board with this, and LinkedIn's biggest expansion is really coming into the international markets where we hope to do this on a global scale. So enough about LinkedIn. Now we're going to talk about, so that's what's going on with LinkedIn. Ooh, wow, who cares? What's in it for me, right? So if LinkedIn is going to be this global kind of map of the economy, you want to be on it, right? Because that's going to be how you connect with companies and connect with the opportunities that are going to be important to you. As part of that, we want to make sure that you're optimizing your professional brand and you understand how to leverage that. So here now we're going to look at first between optimizing and leveraging, we're going to look at how do you optimize your professional brand on LinkedIn. So some general kind of one-on-one best practices around your profile, right? Your profile is it's your professional identity on LinkedIn, and it is your brand. And we really want to get away from kind of the more old school thought of, okay, if I'm looking for a job, I need a cover letter and I need a resume. We're in the information age, and it's information really overload age, I would say, where, you know, it's a very small percentage of recruiters that will ever read through an entire resume. They're scanning at best. And the cover letters, they're scanning at best with those. So it's really shifted to where we need to distill all that information so that it's more easily digestible and that, you know, somebody with a shorter attention span can really go through it. If we think about how the resume you know, it's different than what your personal LinkedIn profile would be, I think a good analogy is your resume is kind of like a recipe for who you are, right? So if I want to make this amazing cake, right? Zach's birthday, we're making him a birthday cake. Hey, what goes into it? Well, you need, you know, 2 eggs and a pound of butter and, you know, this amount of sugar. Well, your resume is kind of like that. Your resume is that detailed recipe about all the skills and everything you have that goes into making you you. Hey, but if I was at a restaurant, right, or I was a restaurant owner and I was like, okay, I need to market this dish to somebody. My cakes are going bad, right? They've been there for a week, and I got to get people to eat them. I'm not going to put the recipe on the menu, right? That's not engaging. What you're going to put is a really nice description. Oh, hey, this is a beautiful birthday cake. It has blue frosting. It's 100% sugar. It will give you a heart attack probably, but it is good. That's the idea, right? From a branding perspective, we don't want to put the detailed recipe, but we want to put that description that from a recruitment standpoint is going to make somebody kind of salivate to say, wow, this is something I'm hungry for. This is something my organization needs. So kind of that's very at a high level, and part of this comes back to, in nitty-gritty, right, the best profiles are complete and they're dynamic. And, you know, what I mean by that is they're filled out to a point where somebody gets an idea of who you are. It's a narrative is kind of the approach here. So number one, right, put a photo on, right, make a headline, and I'll even stop because I get so many pushbacks on the photo stuff, especially even older demographics that are worried about like ageism and things like that. Well, I'll tell you, you're a lot more likely to be viewed if you have a photo. And I understand kind of the objection of, hey, like, you know, I'm just not comfortable doing it, right? And it shouldn't be that big of a deal. Well, something we want to understand in today's kind of network age is that nobody's looking at you in a vacuum, right? Information is not just available, but it's right next to you. And what I mean by that is if you don't have a profile picture in a vacuum, right, not a big deal. But if everybody else has a profile picture and you don't, what that does is, from a recruitment standpoint or from a hiring manager standpoint, it creates a little bit of distrust. There's just a question there of, why does everybody else have one and this person doesn't? So put one on, right? I don't like pictures. I don't think I'm that pretty of a guy, but put it on because it's going to help you, right? The next very basic part of this is a professional tagline. And again, everything we want to focus on, and I'll even take a step back there. So something else you want to realize about LinkedIn is we reach what we call the mobile moment, which is when more than 50% of all of our traffic is actually coming from a mobile device. And so what does that mean? From a branding perspective, that means we need to make sure that we focus on having bite-sized, easily digestible, mobile-friendly bits of information. Again, putting my resume, try to read somebody's resume on an iPhone, you'll probably go blind doing it, right? And it's not going to really make the impact you want. So again, we want to just focus on distilling things down into almost an executive summary of who you are. So going back into, what we call, this is called the top card, and something you want to realize, and give you a little bit more color too, is what I do for a living is basically sell solutions to corporations to recruit people. A lot of that is actually software platforms. It's a SaaS model actually, which is a software as a service. And the important thing to realize is that a lot of this is data-driven, and this top card piece is very important because in a lot of these platforms that recruiters use, they'll see just this part. They'll be looking at one person's profile, but then they'll see maybe a dozen top cards that are related to those people. Getting recruiters to click into that profile is a great way to get more eyes on you and get better opportunities. So knowing that this is all that a lot of recruiters will see before if they didn't find you in a direct search, you want to make sure it's impactful. So below your name you have an area for a professional tagline. And most people, right, as default, will just put whatever their current position is. Oh, hey, account executive, or, alumni manager, whatever it is, right? That's redundant, right? They can already view in your profile, hey, I see what your current title is, right? So first, it's redundant, but number one really is that doesn't make an impact, right? My formal title at LinkedIn is a enterprise relationship manager. What the hell does that mean? Most people don't know. I mean, it's not I guess, a industry common term. And if you look at my profile, my tagline reads something like transforming clients into industry leaders in the new age of social recruiting, right? If somebody's looking for, oh, hey, I need to recruit somebody for my team that is basically an expert, right, in recruiting and social media. If they saw a relationship manager there, it does nothing. It does nothing for me. They're not going to click on, and there's nothing communicated. You really want to think of this as your one-sentence value prop for why a recruiter, hiring manager, or even if it's another professional, or even somebody inside your own company, if they look at you, what are they going to see? What's the one thing you want them to remember? So work on that, and it's actually a great way to kind of start there and work backwards from building out your profile. You also customize your URL, right? Put it in your business cards and keep it in your email signature. It's something we'll talk about in just a little bit, which is, connecting with people is going to be a huge thing you want to do because it's going to help you basically find relationships into the opportunities you have, or excuse me, that you desire. So going a little bit more into your summary, right, and the more nitty-gritty of the profile, just like the tagline is that one-sentence distilled value prop, the summary is the same thing, right? This is, again, that descriptive part of that recipe where you're not telling them the nuts and bolts, but you're giving them a narrative. Overall, you do want to stay away from formal talk. Oh, hey, Zach works at LinkedIn and did this, and he's a blah, blah. First-person narrative is the way to do this. And it seems it's kind of, I guess, counterintuitive, right? Because a lot of times you just think, oh, hey, it's professional, so I want to sound really formal. It's not what people are attracted to, and it's not going to make you seem, really like you're somebody they can figure out, oh, hey, this is somebody's personality on the other phone. Keywords matter, right? You want to, again, realize, too, a lot of this is automated in terms of there's recruiters searching for you or hiring managers using tools, and a lot of those are keyword-driven. So, think about, what skills you want in your next job or what skills the best thing, right, if you're really looking to advance yourself, what are the skills that you have already that you can put in your profile that would probably be keyword hits for the positions that you want to have, right? So you have always some transferable skills, and you want to focus on those. And again, tell a narrative. This should be, what you're passionate about, your skills, and really just tell a story so that somebody can visualize in their mind what you do and what you do for their organization. When you go into experience, right, that's where you can be a little bit more detailed. Hey, what have you accomplished, right? And this is basic kind of, resume 101. You want to use kind of action, sentences. Hey, this is what you've done, not this is what you're responsible for. right? Nobody cares about the list of things that, oh, that's what that person did. They care about what you've moved and shaped, right? If you're in the mix here and a recruiter's looking at you, they know you have the hard skills, so you really want to, make sure you put, again, more of what you've accomplished rather than what you do and what your responsibilities are. Another thing too that's becoming more and more important, it's like it's a big phrase. I mean, if you've ever been rejected for a job or accepted one, this term of cultural fit is a big one people will talk about. And it's becoming more and more important to organizations, right? They don't want people that are just a 9-to-5 person that checks out, right, is in that same job for 10 years. They want people that are active in the community, that have, that are dynamic and have a little bit more extra to give. So do not, forget to include this. And something else, too, to think about is, when it comes down to it, right, no matter how good of skills you have, if you're a 10 out of 10 match for a job, and there's another candidate that is a 9 out of 10 match for the job, but that 9 out of 10 match candidate has more in common with the hiring manager or recruiter, a lot of times that person that is, technically less qualified gets the job, because ultimately relationships matter and commonalities matter, right? And when you put these sort of, things that you're active in, right, that's going to create some commonality that you can, connect on. For example, just in my own life, right, so I work with different, companies on the recruitment strategies. I had this contact who just wouldn't give me the light of day. I was hitting him up and he was just so busy, and I noticed, like, he did these Tough Mudder things, which I've done a few of. And I stopped shooting him a note about what I needed, and I just said, hey, I've got this Tough Mudder coming up, like, how was your experience? He got back to me in a second, right, and I was able to build a relationship off of that. That's just a little example of how something that seemingly isn't that important to your professional life actually is part of who you are. It's part of your identity, because we are all people, right? And again, companies are really starting to shift their view of, wow, we figure out that the people that have, these softer skills make them more rounded and make them a better employee overall. Some questions to kind of help you, to help you get there. When you're thinking about the work you do, what words would your clients, peers, or managers use to describe your work, right? Again, action phrases. Again, LinkedIn's an excellent research tool. If you're buying, oh, hey, I want to be a global account manager or something, look up some global account managers, see what's in their profiles, see what words they have, right, in their profiles that you might have similar skills and can put in yours. How would you describe what you do to somebody completely unfamiliar with your field, right? That's important too. A lot of times recruiters aren't familiar with the technical part of what people do, so you want to be sure you can speak in layman's terms. Obviously, when you're meeting with a hiring manager or somebody that's a little bit more, privy to the technical parts of the job, you can kind of go into that. But again, that is the step that you don't want to take with your brand. Once you get to that place, you can really exhibit it. And then the other thing too is, what can people expect you to bring to the table? We'll look at this in terms of some best practices later, but make sure it's about what you can bring to the table to help your manager and your team and your company, and not necessarily this is what I do and don't connect the dots, right? You have to think about everything from their lens to be able to have them connect those dots in your mind, or in their mind, excuse me. And then, enthusiasm is huge. What do you love most about what you do? Talk about that. People like other people that are excited about what they do. Nobody wants to talk to somebody that's, kind of a wet blanket and not happy about what they do. And, even more so, right, if you're enthusiastic, it shows you're probably good at what you do, you're probably successful, and it just reflects a lot about your persona, right? And that's what we want to communicate through this. So next we'll actually have a quick Q&A time for some questions right after we finish this other section, right? We looked at optimizing your professional brand. Now we're going to look at how do you leverage it, right? So the first thing you want to think about is really building your network strategically, right? And these, I guess, first 3 pillars we'll look at, right? Add your current contacts, make new connections, and then you want to obviously get into the conversation, right? And make sure you're, kind of top of mind with these people. So looking real quick, right? Hey, really easy. You can go into LinkedIn, into the network tab, and add connections from your email box, right? I do want to stress this, though, that you do not want to be basically that person that connects with everybody, right, that you don't know. Because look at this in a little bit. Basically, when you're we're going to go over some strategies today of how you can look at opportunities in companies and really find out, do I have a relationship there? Is there somebody even not at that company that I know that can maybe connect me, right? Well, if you fill your network with a bunch of baloney contacts that really aren't people you know, that's going to basically give you a bunch of false readings when you try to use those strategies, and it's not going to net you anything. Really what you want to think about when you're trying to decide, you know, oh, hey, should I add this person or not? Well, I mean, anybody you know, friends, family, it doesn't have to be just in a professional context, but basically think about it as if somebody was going to ask me, this person I'm about to connect with was going to ask me to do something like, oh, hey, would you mind connecting me to so-and-so, or you be comfortable asking them, make sure it's somebody that you realistically could ask something of, right? Because otherwise, if they would not even know who you are, right? It's not going to be valuable, right? I've even had people start to pare down their networks and get rid of people that, you know, basically they got too excited to connect with everybody. You know, alumni is a good one too, and it's interesting too because there are certain, not exceptions to this, but there's, you know, kind of a side note here, which is, hey, alumni, right? So I might not, I'm sure I don't know, you know, 99% of you on the phone today, but guess what? You went to JMU, you love JMU, I love JMU. That's enough commonality there that, hey, if somebody reaches out to me and they went to JMU and they're like, oh, hey, I need some advice here. Do you know somebody at this company? Guess what? I've got some loyalty here. I bleed purple still slightly, and we're adding 50%. I bleed 50%, you know, purple, 50% blue is LinkedIn blue. But anyway, I'm willing to do something for those people. So again, if there's a commonality where you can realistically leverage a relationship, that's somebody you want to connect with. Something else you can do is connect with agency recruiters and corporate recruiters. And there's a couple of ways to kind of go about this, right? There is, well, I should even start off, you know, connecting with agency recruiters and corporate recruiters, these are definitely very different people, right? An agency recruiter is somebody that works at basically an outsourced recruiting firm, right? And these people will work with, an individual recruiter might work with 20 or 30 given companies at any given time, right? And they're there to help fill some of the hard positions, or maybe they're just there to, you know, do a lot of volume. If you're interested to say, okay, hey, maybe I'm looking for greener pastures, but I really don't want to spend time actively searching, or maybe I am going to be actively searching, it's a great thing to do is to start with agency recruiters and connect with those, because if you're a good candidate and your brand comes across in an impactful way, what that means is that you'll be top of mind with them. And once you kind of make a good impression or able to maybe, you know, connect with them, hey, agency recruiter, you know, I'm, you know, loving my job, but you know what, I've been here a while and I might be looking for a new challenge. Hey, I'd love to just connect with you in case maybe I'm a fit for one of your, you know, clients that you might know, right? Very kind of softball approach to that. But what that does basically, if you make an impact, is that recruiter is going to be basically thinking about you, right, when they see opportunities come, and it's almost like a talent agent, right? They're going to tap you back on the shoulder and say, hey, I actually found something you're a great fit for. This is a way to kind of get those people working for you, and it's a really great, it's a great way to kind of, it's not necessarily automation, but it's a great way to, from the get-go, get some other people working for you that you don't have to worry about. Corporate recruiters are also a good thing to connect with, right? Maybe I want to work for Google or Disney one day, or Facebook, right? So I want to go to Facebook, right? Well, something I would want to do, kind of a softball approach to this is, and side note there, right, when you connect with people, right, you want to make sure that you're not giving them a big ask or that you're kind of too transparent with, wow, you're trying to use them for something, right? You want to go with softer approaches, because what recruiters, and I recruited myself, so I know all about this, what they hate is like, oh man, this person connected with me, they look like they're desperate for a job, and guess what, I'm sure they're going to fall with me every 2 days about them not getting a reply back on a job, right? That's what they fear. If I had somebody connect with me and say, hey, Zach, hey, you worked at LinkedIn, and you're a recruiter. You know what? LinkedIn is just, I love what you guys are doing in this space. Like, I'd love to just know about future opportunities if one came up, or another approach could be, oh, hey, your company interests me, and I'd love to just learn a little bit more about your culture. That's very different than, wow, I saw this job posted. Am I a candidate for this job? Or, and then they're just, in their minds, they're like, oh, no, it's one of these guys, right? You want to stay away from that. But do connect with these people. If you come across and you're branded the right way, they will absolutely connect with you, because they're like, wow, this is somebody that I can use at a later date. A lot of times, recruiters actually organize their candidates that they're connected with, and say, okay, wow, this person's an A candidate, a B, a C. There's tools to do that within LinkedIn. And if you're an A1, they'll come up and look at you when they're doing searches. So definitely leverage that. It's kind of the underworld of getting a job. Are these people the ones that actually make things happen? Another thing too, to kind of to really leverage your brand that you now have is follow companies. Right? There's really kind of 2 or 3 reasons that you want to do this. The first one actually is kind of an insider thing, right? If you follow a company, these recruiting tools that most companies have that they use of LinkedIn's, there's a filter, just like you have a filter on LinkedIn where you can say, okay, I want to go New York City or LA or whatever. There's a filter in their recruiting tools that say, okay, I'm going to look for this salesperson, right? I need an account executive with this experience in this area. But they'll always almost click also, hey, let me click and see, is there anybody that fits this criteria I have that's a follower of my company? Because those recruiters and hiring managers know that, wow, this person has shown that they're interested in us. They're following us to get news and updates, and they're probably not somebody that's, just throwing crap at the wall and see if it sticks here. They're informed about us, right? So it's a way to kind of start at the top of the stack when you're trying to get on a recruiter's radar. The other thing is really just for those same reasons. When you follow a company, companies usually put out 3 different kinds of updates. They're going to put out jobs, actual opportunities. When they post a job and you're following a company, in your LinkedIn stream, you're actually going to get that opportunity pop right into your feed, right? So a great way to kind of keep up with what's going on with those companies. The other 2 pieces that they'll post are generally industry publications, right? So if it's LinkedIn, we'll post a lot about, hey, this is what's going on in social media and employment and whatever. And the other thing they'll post is things about the company. Oh, hey, this is like, we did this company picnic, and this is like what's important to our plans this year. This is what's going on. If you ever have that chance to interact with a recruiter or get, especially in an interview with them, if you've been following that company and are getting updates from their stream, guess what? You're going to know a lot of this stuff without even having to do research because you basically are being able to keep up to date with what's going on with them. So really 2 different ways, right? Basically be found by those recruiters and say, oh, wow, these are people that know what we're about. But 2, it's going to help you not miss out on opportunities from those companies, but also really be able to speak a lot more eloquently and informed on what's going on within their organizations, which is huge. Being educated about what's going on. I mean, if you're a candidate and you have to ask a company, hey, so what do you guys do? Let me tell you that you're not going to get a second interview. I'd be surprised if anybody has ever gotten that where they didn't know what the company did and got anywhere in the application process. So, doing research ahead of time is really key. So I'm going to pause there because we went through a lot, and I'm a fast talker. If you guys have not noticed, I'm pretty pumped about what I do, which is part of this. But I'm going to pause here and open it up to the group. I think Amanda's running the chat, so if anybody has some questions, for me before we move on, I'd love to pause for some Q&A.
Zach, I think we can all agree you're doing an awesome job. This is super interesting. There's a lot going on Twitter, so if you haven't already tweeted, we're using the hashtag JMUAAwebinar. We got a great question from a current student, and what is your suggestion for students' taglines since they're not yet in a position?
So it's a really great question. So if you're not currently in a position, right? Well, again, it's what your mission statement is. It's kind of what your tagline is. So again, you want to think about this not about you basically want to think about, okay, what are the skills that I have, right? What am I seeking, and then what would a company that I want to get into seek for me? So again, right, say, hey, maybe I was right. So before I got into recruitment, right, I was in just like an industrial sales job. And I knew I wanted to get into the tech space, right? So something that I would try to do is, or you can say that, I'll back up, right? If I was a student, I never had a sales job before. Well, I would try to basically emphasize these things that I did have, like, hey, excellent presenter, right? I don't know if I am, we'll find out after the survey goes that day, but excellent presenter, excellent presenter that's looking to make an impact in a tech company, right? There is no silver bullet with this. It's really going to come down to, okay, the first thing you want to decide is what is your mission, right? What is the job that you want? And we'll talk about this in a little bit. It's so important to tailor and choose less opportunities to go after than go generic, right? So really what it comes down to is study the company or opportunities you're interested in, and then try to basically build some of the skills that you have into that tagline and make it focused on where you want to develop. I know that's kind of a wide-ranging answer, but it really is. Study those two things and then figure out where you can connect the dots.
Totally. I think that makes a ton of sense. All right, another question we're getting is, you mentioned LinkedIn scrapes for positions to add to the site, and that's how you ended up with the 2 million. Can you talk more about how LinkedIn gets those?
Yeah, so it's pretty, it's actually really simple. So LinkedIn actually acquired a company that had a technology. It's basically a technology platform that goes and scrapes every site on the entire internet and reposts them on LinkedIn. Something you should understand, right, is that how that functions basically, on a daily basis, LinkedIn is doing an entire survey of the internet and basically updating every company's feed to be reflected on LinkedIn. There are some things that are excluded. Some staffing companies actually exclude themselves from this. So there might be, positions that only a firm has, right? And a lot of times, so you guys understand this, is, for executive positions or some, specific ones, companies will actually use firms because they want to keep things confidential or anonymous. But what you want to understand from that is basically, if you are looking for a job, you can go into LinkedIn and pretty much understand that whatever job that you're looking for, it's going to be on LinkedIn. If it's on if it's on a company's external website. Does that answer the question?
I believe so. I think we're good, and we can move on, and we'll take the rest of the questions at the end of the session.
Cool. Sounds good. All right. So moving right along. So on the hunt, what are some best practices around, if you're actively searching for a job, right? So there's kind of 3 things I want to go over here about hunting smart. One is, finding out open opportunities, how to kind of automate that once you've kind of got that, this first part done, and then some general pitfalls to avoid when you're doing this. So real quick, right, finding opportunities for you, right? So, one of the things you want to realize, again, is that, hey, these jobs, right, I always say this, like, technology is stupid, right, and you have to be kind of smart to figure out how do I leverage this. So finding the right opportunities for you, I'm going to go ahead and pop into my Internet Explorer here, or Chrome, whatever this is, right? So if I go onto my homepage on LinkedIn, right, this is my normal feed, and I go to jobs, I'm actually going to find jobs that, first off, are surfaced to me based on my background. So what you want to understand with LinkedIn is, if you're just on LinkedIn and poking around looking for jobs, you're going to find things that are relevant to you, because how these jobs work, and you notice this, right? So it's client success, account manager, account executive, staffing stuff. A lot of these these are sales positions, basically, which is my background. LinkedIn, anything we're going to show you on LinkedIn is basically based on your profile. Again, that's why it's important to have a good profile that's built out, because what you're surfaced on LinkedIn is based upon your profile. And basically how that works is that there's an algorithm that looks at, hey, what these jobs are, what keywords and other parts that are in this job relate to what's in your profile. And you're always going to see what LinkedIn thinks is the most relevant ones. So you can always poke around and look that way. But what we're going to go over now real quick is searching jobs, right? So I want to, say I'm looking for an account manager position. So I'll go ahead and do account manager. And there's some basic stuff here, right? So I've been surfaced with 100,000 jobs almost. And use filters, right? This is a way to, just make sure that I'm not looking for, not looking at opportunities that are outside of what I'd actually take. So maybe it's Greater New York City area, maybe, there's only, only certain industries I want to go to, et cetera. But what we'll talk about now is basically making your searches for jobs a lot more efficient. And what I want you to realize here is, when I type in account manager here, what I'm seeing is there's 100,000 positions, right? And if I look, hey, the top ones, they're all account manager, that's great, right? But if I clicked into, the latter half of these, job number 60,000 or whatever, what you'll find out is that there's some jobs that are coming up that aren't an account manager job. All that's in that posting is basically there's somewhere where the word account is there and the word manager. And so that's actually a false positive. And what we're going to talk about real quick is Boolean search string. And Boolean is just a fancy name for search modifiers that are going to help you narrow down your job search more. And I think, let me see, I've got a slide actually for this. So I'm going to skip over real quick, right? I'll go back. So Boolean, there's really a few different levels to it. There's quotes, which is how we look for a phrase, basically. Parentheses, which is how we kind of section off a piece of this. So you guys know also there's going to be a tip sheet that goes out after this. So if this is sounding like, you know, a different language to you completely, don't worry. You know, the tip sheet will help you make sense of it, and I'll illustrate this in a second. And is really how we connect to search modifiers. Or is going to be how we look for multiple searches within the same search, and then not's how we eliminate things. So that probably sounds all confusing, and this is too much to read, so I'm going to go back and just show you how this works, right? So if I'm looking for account manager, again, I've got 100,000 positions. Well, guess what? We know that some of these are not the ones. So if I go here and I switch, and I just pre-populated this, and I put this in quotations, right, what that's doing is it's looking for this exact phrase. And you can tell I went from 100,000 jobs to 30,000, right? So what that means is that almost 70,000 jobs were false positives, right? They were, you know, in a posting that basically had those words in it, but it wasn't that phrase. It's not what I'm looking for. So as part of this, right, account manager is like a sales name. And guess what? There's a lot of different names for salespeople. There is account manager, an account executive, and a sales executive, and there's just a billion relationship manager is one of them, right? So how do I don't want to do a search for account manager and then do one for account executive and then have to do one for everyone that exists. It's just I'm going to get you frustrated and either not do it or just completely miss out by like saying, hey, this isn't working for me. So how do we add those in? That's where the or modifier comes in and where the parentheses come in. So real quick, I'm going to switch between these two tabs, right? I had account manager with quotations, right, and 32,000 jobs, right? What I'm doing here when I'm going to the next screen is I put account manager, right, in quotations, and I'm using the or modifier in between it. I'm then putting that account executive in quotations. And basically in one search, this is going to say, okay, Zach, we found these positions, and they either have account executive in them or account manager in them. So it's going to have at least one of these things. The beautiful thing is that it's one search that's looking for two specific phrases, right? And that's going to make me just a lot more efficient. So let's see here. Oh. And so my next tab, if you will, from going from account manager to account executives, I'll add one more in, right? I'm going to go to relationship manager. Now I have 61,000, right? So you can keep doing this and I've seen people have search strings that might have like 30 different names for them. It depends what titles are common in your industry or industry you want to get into, but, you know, basically you don't want to miss out on a job because you didn't put the right search in there. So this is the way you can build that out. So the next thing we can do is, okay, hey, I am looking for a sales job, and guess what? I'm in corporate sales, and I'm not really interested in kind of retail sales at this point. But maybe a bunch of these jobs are maybe retail, you know, jobs. And so that's where that not modifier comes in. So right here, again, let's pay attention to how many jobs are coming up. There's 61,000. So if I tab to the next tab here, what I've done at the end is I put, again, this is all in quotations, right, and all in parentheses because that's basically sectioning off this just like a math problem. Because what this is, so you understand, is this is an or modifier, search string, and if I'm going to change from like an or to a not or an and, that's where I used parentheses to basically section that off. Anyway, so now I'm going to not, right, and put retail. So what that did when I went from 60,000 to 50,000 was it eliminated 10,000 jobs that had the word retail in it. And if I'm not interested in retail, well, guess what? That's great because now I'm only going to see things that are really what I want to see. And you can take that even a step further, right? So now we have that not retail. So what if I want to work in a certain industry? Like I love the tech space, right? So I can then add another modifier on, and what I'll do there is I go, and we'll go here. So relationship manager, not retail, and then I've added and tech. So here we go. This is pretty, right on in terms of, okay, it's account manager, account executive, relationship manager, not retail, and also tech. Right? And hey, maybe tech isn't maybe I want to do and then do something like this where it says, okay, and then I go tech or technology, and I could go do whatever I wanted to, but basically it's being able to connect to or modifiers or and whatever you want. So again, there's going to be a tip sheet that goes, out after this if it's confusing. But what we'll talk about next is saving these searches, right? So the purpose why you want to basically have a very precise search is because I don't want to spend all day basically running these searches, right? It's tough to keep motivated when you do that. And a great way to kind of automate this is to do save searches. And so all I have to do to save this search on LinkedIn is anywhere you're doing a search, you'll notice in the right-hand corner, there's something that says Save Search. So I click on that, it's going to give me an option. And it's going to say, hey, Zach, do you want to save the search? I'm like, okay, yeah. And what it's going to do is give you an alert. You can do it daily, weekly, monthly, or if you do never, it's just going to be whenever you check it, you'll see those results. So how Save Searches work is that basically it's going to give you the postings, the job postings that are coming up since the last time you checked that search. So what I mean is, right, I've got, 304 positions here, right? And this is pretty granular. And I even have this, it's Greater New York City area, which is very specific, right? So, right, I'm in NYC, so if there's a sales position that's not in retail, it's in the tech space, I probably want to know about it. But if I think about the new jobs that have come up, that would come up on a weekly basis, maybe it's like 10 or 12 or 20, right? So not a ton. But what I can do is basically when I do the save search is I get LinkedIn to automate this for me. So when I say check mark this and run this, and you can have this sent to your email or you can have it so you have to come into LinkedIn and check. But when you click on that save search, what will happen is you'll see those 12, 15, 20 jobs that have been posted since the last time you run that search. So this is a great way to basically, and you're going to have 10 of these running at any given time. So think about, hey, what are some creative, what are some areas maybe I want to get into? This would be a great job, or, think about a string that's going to be relevant to you. Why it's important to make this pointed again is if I make a very broad search and I get an alert and I get 3,000 jobs a day, well, guess what? I'm basically giving myself a lot of bullcrap work to do because within 3,000 jobs, I'm not going to get through those. And what that means is that I just didn't spend enough time to make a pointed search. It is a lot better to have 10 very pointed searches than it is to have one generic one. The idea here is that if I see an alert come up and it's like, wow, I have one come up for my sales tech New York one, well, I automatically know that based upon the search criteria I did before, that those jobs are going to be of interest to me, and I'm not going to be wasting my time. Right? And again, if you're picking super passive, make these super specific. Put your dream job in there, right? And maybe one will come up for a month, but when one does, you're going to get an alert. And what happens is those get reflected in the alerts as soon as they're posted by a recruiter. So the chances that you're going to be very at the beginning of the pipeline are better, and that's going to give you a better chance to, do what you need to. So again, we'll get back on track real quick here, and again, we'll send out a tip sheet for this. But I'll skip back real quick, right? So here's a pop quiz, right? I want some participation here. So I don't know if anybody was quick enough to see when I switched through these, but what % of jobs are found by applying to job ads? Just throw it to the screen. Anybody, A, B, C, D, 10, 30, 70, 90. Somebody throw some things in the feed. What's everybody's best guess? C. Okay. So C, got a D, got a B. Well, it's B. It's 30% of jobs are actually found by just applying to a job ad, which means, hey, there's no relationship piece to that. 70% of jobs are found through a relationship, right? It's a lot higher than people expect, right? And again, hey, 30% of, millions of jobs is still a good amount, but especially those jobs that are more highly sought after, the people that get into those interviews usually have a connection path. Because just think about it from a personal perspective, if you're a hiring manager or recruiter and people are saying, hey, Zach Della, or, LinkedIn recruiter, hey, my friend just applied to the job and he actually, you're a great friend of mine. He's one of my best friends. Am I going to look at that person first before I look at 1,000 random applications, which half of them are probably serial appliers that are just, hoping to throw crap at the wall and see what sticks? Absolutely. I'm going to go for those relationships. Something to realize, too, with companies, referrals and references are so important because what a recruiting organization fears is we hire somebody that's a truly bad apple, that's crazy, or is, a sexual offender or something crazy like that where it has a big negative impact on the organization. if they have a reference point that's a relationship, they can automatically check that box off and say, hey, somebody we know that is credible vouches for this person. So we know they're not, basically they are who they say they are, and that we're not kind of have that worry about, having a big negative impact on our organization. So one of the things you want to do, right, when you're looking at jobs, and LinkedIn will show you this, and I'll give you guys a little teaser. LinkedIn's going to be revamping a lot of their feel and look in the next couple quarters here, and it's really going to be focused on this, which is, when you look at a job or you look at a company, we're really going to try to bring those insights to the surface of this is who you know there. This is how you have a relationship at. But when you look at jobs on LinkedIn, you'll see if you have connections at those companies, it'll show you that. And hey, it's not really, I guess, reasonable to believe that, oh wow, if I randomly apply to IBM, I'm going to know somebody there, right? But we have when we think of your LinkedIn network, we have your first degrees, which are your connections, then we have your second degree, which is your connections, right? I might not know somebody at IBM, but I might know a friend who knows somebody at IBM. And that's the path that you want to take, right? Oh, hey, Bob Schmo, like you know Eric that works at IBM, like would you be willing to introduce me? Well, guess what? You don't have to be best friends with the guy that works at IBM, but it's basically leveraging relationship capital. You've got a relationship with that person, they have a relationship with the end person at IBM, you're basically, leveraging that relationship to get in the door. It's what works, and it's where you want to start your approach, basically. So I already looked at Boolean, and we're coming up on time here anyway, so let's quickly look at some pitfalls to avoid before I let you get back to your afternoon. So some general ones to realize is the volume approach, it does not work. It's really something you want to avoid. 5 tailored approaches to getting a job are going to be are going to net you a better result than 50 generic, let me throw crap at the wall and see what sticks. Again, I mean, there's companies that their entire value prop are selling to corporations to say, hey, you get so much bull crap from these serial appliers that we're going to sell you software that weeds them out automatically, right? If what you're submitting to doesn't have any relevancy to what your background is, or you haven't haven't really tailored your profile to make it seem that way, or at least emphasize it, you're really doing yourself a disservice. And what will happen is you feel like you're doing a lot of work, but you're really not doing that hard work. You're doing like sloppy work, and it's not going to net you something, and you'll get discouraged, right? Go and focus on relationships and a tailored approach, and you're going to have a lot more success than if you went crazy just applying. Also, think about this. Give them everything about you. No, don't do that. You don't want to, again, what is relevant to them is what you want to focus on, so give them the right things about you. Again, remember, mobile age, 2-second attention spans. If you put everything that you do about them, well, there's a couple of dangers there. Number one is recruiters are always very aware of, wow, if somebody is overqualified for this job, or they have 10 years of experience in this, right, and they have 2 in this, and they want this other job, they're worried about that person leaving, right, and that costs companies big money. So you can make yourself seem, and I guess the instinct there is, wow, I've done all these things, so I just want to tell everybody about everything I've done. They don't care, right? If I'm a manager and I need this person to fill a role on my team, I'm really worried about, can this person do these things that I need them to do? And with the attention span people have today, that's all that you're probably like, even give them the concise story that's just about the right things about you for that job, they might not even get through that. So the danger of putting too much in there is basically you get lost in the noise of yourself, right? And oh wow, somebody's so impressive they've done all this, that is not what a hiring manager is worried about. They're worried about, can you do the task at hand they need you to do. Making it about you. It's the same sort of thing right here. It's about them. This is really almost like the point B of number 2, which is and this is in every way, right? How you customize your profile, how you reach out to people and start to interact with recruiters and hiring managers, and especially in the interview process, right? It's not about, a company is not paying you because you're just a great person, right? And like, oh, wow, you did this amazing thing, so you're so fabulous, we'll just give you a job and pay you, and I guess you can do this stuff. No, it's about, can you help this organization be more successful with what they do? And that goes down to, what does this team do? And, is it going to help them, right? So make it about them, not about you. It's just a reactionary thing that most people, maybe get caught up with themselves, and it's just how you lose, and especially in the interview stage, which we'll talk about in the next webinar. The other thing, too, is using relationships as a last resort. So many times I get people that will, hey, Zach, hey, we're going to we used to go to school together, whatever. Help me out. I'm having trouble finding a job. And, well, again, they usually do all these things wrong. They start out, they're like, Zach, I've applied to 1,000 jobs in the last, 2 weeks. I can't believe I didn't get anything. Well, it's like, whoa, okay, settle down, right? But they're starting off with this, long approach about them, and then, telling everything about themselves, hoping that somebody's going to pick the right thing out of there, right? Don't do that. And also use relationships as your first resort, right? Those are the places that you're going to have the best chance at getting that job. And so that's where you want to, that's where you want to go. And you'll find, too, that you never really, the interesting thing about how LinkedIn is set up is, your first third connections, right? Again, you know your friends and your professional colleagues pretty well, or just people you met in a professional sense, but you don't know everybody they know, right? So the whole thing here is it isn't really about your network, it's about your network's network, right? If you think, hey, I maybe have, 500 people in my network. Well, if I think about it, 500 people have 500 people in their network, that's a pretty big network of people that are probably going to be in some areas I want to get into. So running up on time here, I got to give Amanda some time back, but that's it. I don't know if we have some time for Q&A or if we got to, Amanda, I'm passing the torch back to you here.
Yes, absolutely. Thanks, Zach. We do have a lot of questions, so I'll apologize in advance if your question doesn't get answered. And Zach, you can feel free to answer these, we can do like a little rapid fire here if we need to. A question we got on Twitter was, how important is it for students and professionals to create and post original content to build their professional brand?
So that's a great question. So it really comes down to the industry you're in, and is that it really comes back to viewing that from your hiring manager or recruiter's perspective, right? So if you're in marketing, right, or you're in editorial, if you're in something that basically those skill sets are going to be important, absolutely, that's going to be a huge differentiator and something that is going to set you apart. Hey, guess what? If you're an accountant, right, and you're, a financial auditor, and hey, you write this great article about whatever it is, that's not necessarily going to be important to that person, and it's not going to, I think, take away from you, but it's not going to be as important. So you always want to think, what's your return on time for what you're doing? And in certain areas, absolutely, if writing and communicating is something you do on a frequent basis in that job, absolutely, it's something good to do. And I should even stop myself there, because if you're able to, showcase your personality a little bit, right, and give somebody a more well-rounded view of who you are through that writing, it's really important. It can be a big help.
Great. What about recommendations and endorsements? Are those worth the time that it takes to go out and kind of get those from other people?
So I'll say this, right? So, and this is actually LinkedIn probably wouldn't mind me saying this, but they're not as important. I mean, they can absolutely reinforce your profile, right? It is never negative to have lots of references. Recruiters will look at those, right? But they aren't the first thing they're going to look for. The idea here is, okay, they're going to have to get those references anyway, right? Hard references, phone calls. So it can add to your overall persona, so they're a good thing, but don't think that wow, I need to go spend so much time on these because the reason I'm not getting callbacks or emails back is because I don't have enough endorsements. That's not the case. It'll strengthen it, but that's kind of, I would say, when we're to a point where we have, gotten to cover all the main bases, that's fine-tuning can absolutely help. What I would say is, hey, if these people are willing to endorse you, look at their networks and see who they know and see if they have any, way into those opportunities. Because if they're willing to give you a reference on LinkedIn, they're obviously willing to introduce you to people at other organizations.
Great. Well, I think we're just about out of time. I know we still had a lot of questions, but we do want to be mindful to everyone who is on. If you do have questions, feel free to email them to me. I'm going to be sending up a follow-up email after the webinar with the recording, with the slides, and you can just respond to me, and I'll see what I can put together to help with that. Let's all thank Zach again. He's done a really great job, and know that our next webinar is actually February 10th, so a month from now, and Zach is going to be talking a little bit more about using LinkedIn, once you kind of identify the job that you want, using LinkedIn to really get that job. So we're going to go a little bit more in depth if you're, back in college days. This was the 101, and next month is the 201. So Zach, thank you so much for your time today. It's been really, really great, and we'll see you next month.
Awesome, I appreciate it. Hey, feel free to connect with me. I've got a pretty robust network, and I'm always willing to introduce people. So look forward to, having everybody else on the call next month. See you later.
And Zach, look out for the many requests you're going to get on LinkedIn.
Good. That's what I do, so I'm happy about it. Anyway. All right, guys, have a great afternoon. I'll talk to you soon.